Module 4, Protocol and Application Level Networking. This is for part of the network programming subject, Module 4. Okay, this module, we have a couple of sub-modules. So I make it simplify because in order to cover all this, there will be 4 labs activities which is related to this module. Okay, will be held later on for the student. All right. So basically, module 4 we start with introduction and a little bit refreshing like HTTP, HTTPS basic, what they are. And then HTTP client and servers, how to build that, what are the protocol, especially for application programming interface, what are we going to use, and also we have a couple of library that we're going to together in order to develop this kind of application based on web, so JSON, XML, and serializations. Finally, a little bit on WebSocket basics, similar that previously we more on without web. So now we go for web, so we need to all this kind of things actually to develop. And finally, some outcome of the project. So more on the, it's okay if you want to go for the web base, also fine. If you want to go for without web base, also fine. Okay, so this is the what we call this, and the evolutions of the technology itself. Sometimes we need, there is a pro and con. Sometimes we don't need web, so we just create our own using VPN, okay, to communicate. So depends on whatever project that we're going to develop. Okay, doesn't matter. So that's why I need you to give your project name. So we need to discuss the detail about that. That's very important because we just before we start our projects. All right. Okay, introduction. So as usual, this is prerequisite program technique 1. So this is the code of this subject. Okay, a little bit overview. This module introduces some high-level networking protocol. Okay, compared to the previous one, more on, without web. So high level, we go for the web version. We are using web browser to develop any application based whatever. And application layer technologies, especially for Java. We don't go for any language yet. Okay, we go for Java. We just continue from the previous. So the whole semester, basically for this subject, we are using Java. So as I told you, Java is already developed this kind of the libraries to support all this technology. Okay, and then at the same time, student will learn how Java support HTTP and HTTPS communications. And as I told you, RESTful API is one of that in order to develop, and a couple of library that we're going like this, and the technique they're using, serialization, JSON, XML, and real-time connection using WebSocket. So regarding socket, recently we just go for without the, without web. Okay, so the concept, the fundamental almost same. And then course learning outcome, this module. Explain the fundamental of HTTP and also HTTPS communication model. Very basic. And then another learning outcome for this module is develop Java program. Of course, this is a programming classes, so there is a Java program. So develop Java program, and then for what? Send and receive data using HTTP client and server, similar like we did for the previous on socket, without the web. That socket, fundamental on socket, similar to this, but we apply on the web. So build and consume. So I'll just give a couple because activity will give a lot of overview of that. Okay, during lecture, as I told you in previous example, So we just give a portion part of that. Okay, we're not explaining the whole code, everything. Yeah, you give a skeleton, the concept, and then explaining a bit of that, the very required, required protocol, library that we're going to use in that particular application. So that's the thing that we use during presentation. Yeah. So and then we develop embed, as I told you just now. RESTful and API is one of the Java frameworks. We use this RESTful API and also the current Java framework in web enable, especially for socket, which is Spring Boot, HTTP client, yeah. And then implement data serializations, how data send, okay, using a web version. Okay, of course they were using JSON and also XML. So data serialization and deserialization is similar like that we learn on without web, which is buffer reader, okay, input output stream. That's things, okay, data serialization similar, yeah. And then demonstrate real-time communication using WebSocket in Java program as a API, yeah. And then integrate REST and also web together to build the full stack communication system. They need to build together. This is similar that in the previous, I told you to develop a TCP application, UDP application, what we need that. Okay, there's a similar things. Okay, this is the web versions. Okay, all right. So HTTP and HTTPS basics. So everyone very known this one very clear, and we have been using this till today, and also future. I don't know. Okay, maybe we got another method. I'm not sure, but till now we've been using. Yeah, we've been use this. Yeah, for our daily purpose, yeah, our daily life. Okay, so it's I can say part of our life to use this. So we need to know we develop for them. Okay, we are computer scientists. We develop for them. So HTTP basically is hypertext transfer protocol, and HTTPS, which is we embed the security on that. Yes, SS socket secure layer and also TLS. Secure layer means on that. So there is HTTPS. All right, and also it is that tell you that HTTP is a stateless request response protocol. Okay, so there is a stateless, there is a stateful. Okay, that means doesn't keep your history. Stateless. That's HTTP, yeah. And then and then this is the method, the method that we're going to use: get, post, put, delete. Okay, we will use this as a main method to post, to delete, to altering everything. Okay, this is the method that we will use that. And then the code, when we create a page, and the code will give something to respond, because that's why when we hack something and we try to penetrate to the system, this code represents something. So that's why we play with this kind of the status code. Okay, so 200 what means, 201 what does it mean, 400 what does it mean, 404 we usually know that, and then this one, and so many numbers, actually status code. Okay, we'll play with this in order to to check our error whatsoever. And next we got this kind of this is the HTTP URL connection, and also client, which is for Java plus above for HTTP operation. All right. Okay. So this is part of the code. Okay, you will going later through our lab activity. Yeah. All right. Next, building HTTP client and servers in Java, of course, using Java. So client, similar like we did for the previous on Shortcut. Similar for this, we need to have HTTP client. Okay, the client for the client, or we can use another library. Okay, like Apache HTTP client. And for the server, we're using a framework like Springboard, Spark Java, or Jakarta EE. Yeah. Okay. And then this is the example of HTTP server. Right. Okay. The concept is similar, almost 99% different code. Yeah. All right. Okay. There is here URI built and respond, and then it will respond to. And it's connected. So this is a server HTTP. This is minimal code, yeah, for the very basics. Okay, just we want to show and what are the library that are going to use this Java.NET HTTP, Java.NET URI, Java.NET HTTP, and all under HTTP. Yeah. And for the REST API, consuming and building RESTful services. Okay, we need to have this, yeah, in your code. Yeah. Okay, what is the REST? REST is representational state transfer. So this architectural style of framework for designing network application. So what is the REST API? API application programming interface. So it's allow communication between client and also server. Okay, they create a bridge over web using HTTP protocol. So we need this, yeah, REST API. REST API expose resources, data entities that can be accessed and manipulated using standard HTTP method. Okay, each resource is identified by URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. Okay, so the good example like Google Drive, so how to communicate among all the, page. So we use this to access, right? Okay, similar things. For example, this, yeah. And then this URI might represent a collection of users that can retrieve, create, modify using standard HTTP method. Okay, all right. So we are use HTTP method as a CRUD operation, yeah, and then data format using together embed, and also XML, and also framework that we're going to use Spring Boot, Jakarta RESTful Web Services, or JAX-RS. We call that JAX-RS. We use that framework, and this example, it's very simple. Okay, just we need to have this to call Spring Boot REST controller. Okay, this, yeah. So JSON, XML, and serialization. So this we need. This framework is very important. Serialization, I told you, is like in the without web, we call this representing the data transfer. So here they convert Java object to the byte for for the network transmission. Okay, serialization. This is like a stream. Okay, that we learned before. Okay, this is the library I told you, JSON, XML. Okay, we are using this, and then how they embed in our code. So we need to import this. Yeah, like for example, .com.google JSON and this from JSON. Yeah, all right. And then we have this class, and then here we got list of users. Okay. So this is we call the way how we represent that. Yeah. Okay. And next is very crucial and very important, which is WebSocket Basic. Okay, WebSocket enable full duplex. Okay, real-time communications. Yeah, WebSockets. Socket itself is for that we cover for the previous meeting. So this is a WebSocket. Yeah, and useful for chat and useful for everything, especially communications. Okay, whatever. Yeah, if you develop any application that use a web, okay, using a browser to access HTTP or HTTPS, so we cannot run away from this WebSocket. Yeah, and then Java API for WebSocket is this. Especially they provide a library, similar thing that we need to have this. So the functions will like a normal socket, simplify development. They hide some complexity, especially layers. We cannot see, we cannot modify all the layer when we do this programming using this library. Unless we create our own library, that's fine. So they make it simplified, that's why they hide. Okay, we already discussed why there is a good and bad of that. Yeah. Okay, this is part of the code. Okay, Java WebSocket server. Yeah. And then this is the what we call this some class chat endpoint, and then this is message they're going to pass, and then this the send a message to the server or to the another destination. Yeah. All right. So this is part of the Java WebSocket server. And next is some possible outcome. Okay. Especially we can use if you want. Okay, like to develop any kind of the call application based on this technology. Okay, or we can use this REST. Of course, WebSocket is important. Okay, any interaction type of them depend on your applications. So we need to have a REST WebSocket. Okay, and then this one focus on chat application. Okay, and then so for example, yeah, chat application. So that's why we need REST API for users on WebSocket. Of course, communication between users, adjacent for the exchanging format, yeah, and also basic authentication security for user session. Okay, REST is very compulsory. Is a compulsory. I can say that in order for the to make that web enable. Yeah. So this is about the chat applications. So different application could be different. Okay, but normally when we are communicating between two, so we need to have this kind of the element. Yeah, this technology. All right. Okay. That's regarding module 4. Yeah.